My name's Mark Barber. I've been unemployed originally and initially from the 31st of August. I signed on that particular week, and then I came up here to have a look and introduce myself to the people at Evolution just to see what the crack was. I managed to escape it for a few weeks by having a short-term contract, but they eventually made me redundant on the 15th of October. So I came up here and spoke to Bashad and Zaire, and basically run through one or two different things with them. Found them very approachable, extremely approachable actually. They had a look at my CV, ran it through past me, one or two changes that they'd actually made past me, which was great, yeah. After that, I tried to come in at least once a week just to see the guys and see what's happening. I have been for one or two jobs that Evolution have actually put forward, but for whatever reason, and we've been unable to find out, I haven't been accepted. This one today, I have actually just come back from an interview that was actually put forward by Evolution again. It's a local government job. Again, I've just come back from the actual interview. There are further interviews, and hopefully I will go through to the next round on that. I found that whenever I've come up here to Evolutions, and I come up every, as I say, at least once a week, anything that I need doing or need to get done, etc., any help with anything, including things like poll tax or whatever, they've been able to help, or at least point me in the direction of somebody who can actually able to help me, rather than just turning around and saying, well, sorry, we can't help you or whatever. As I say, I've always found them generally approachable, and basically, if I've needed anything, apart from a fiver at the till, they've been able to accommodate.
Okay. So obviously you're currently registered, unemployed, with a Job Centre Plus.
Yes.
How do you see the difference between Job Centre Plus and Evolution? Do you think you get a better one-to-one here? Or?
Yes, I think it's a little bit more informal here. Maybe it's because it's a little bit more smaller and everybody seems to know each other by their name. I mean, I came in today and it was, hello Mark, how did you get on? Rather than Mr. Barber, your employment number is so, etc, etc. Yeah, I appreciate that there is a big difference, but sometimes being a bit humane can actually make that little bit difference.
Do you use, apart from the job search at Evolution, do you do your own job search here? Do you use the internet here at all?
At the moment I have internet access at home.
Right.
So, but yes, I am on various websites like Monster, jobs.com, etc. I also go on to DirectGov. Jam is another one, although I thought that was something that you spread from the jar, but there you go. There's also iBic. And there are one or two others that I've actually.
And because you was in obviously long-term employment, how do you find in 2010 the processes for doing interview application forms, prospective letters, etc., etc.? Did you get any guidance on that?
Well, having been out of if you like, I was going to say the local government army for 30 years. I did find it a little bit daunting at first, simply to write a CV. Exactly what do you put on it? It can be too long or it can be too short. Yes, I did actually get a little bit of guidance, but my main bugbear was the actual covering letter, which some people regard as equally important. I found that more difficult than the CV. But Zaire had come up with one that I can use as a general purpose one, because I tended to take speculative CVs around to various companies on various parts of Birmingham. And it's not a case that you can know everyone on a particular area. So therefore, I would hand out my prospective CV with a general covering letter, rather than trying to gear that covering letter to that particular company.
Come with you, I'm with you. And so that help's come from Evolution. Have you received the same help from Job Centre Plus?
No, basically they said that they would actually have a look at the CV. When I took it up there, I was told that there was absolutely no problem. The only thing I will say is that the jobs that I have actually, if you like, been for from Job Centre, one of them came back to me and said that I was actually overqualified, and the other one turned around and basically said, well, you know, we think that it's not quite what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So it does make you wonder whether the CV, if you like, is actually scaring people off. It's something that we're going to look at in the new year.
Yeah. A suggestion that I would make, and I've said it to Zai, some of the covering letter or the spec letter on your CV, you need to try to tailor that to the vacancy that you're going for.
Yes, that's okay if you know the actual company, but if you're going there on a speculative, like I went out, for example, around, is it Gravely Industrial Estate?
Gravely, yeah.
Gravely. Now,
yeah.
I didn't know exactly what was on Gravely, so I can't tailor each one.
No.
So I used a general letter at the time that enabled me to go in there and say, well, look, you know, I'm unemployed, this is my CV. I'll be totally honest with you, I did find it actually fairly well received.
Well, that's good.
And a different way of actually doing it. They seem to, not to like the fact, but seem to be interested in the fact that I was actually taking the time to go out and hand my CV to them, even though there was perhaps no vacancies. You know, I'd actually put myself out to actually do that.
Do you know, Mark, with all the current funding cuts that have been announced, places like Evolution Centre and local organisations helping local people on the ground, they will be struggling to find resources to continue. So from your experience, how important is it that these organisations are funded continuously from next year? Because what we're going to find is a lot of these will go due to these funding cuts.
It's extremely important because it's part of the community. The Job Centre sees, if you like, hundreds of people each day. Evolutions won't perhaps see as many because it's only geared to a particular part of that community. But within that community, they tend to understand, if you like, what the people want and how that community works. So yes, it is exactly very important. Had not Evolutions been here, I would have found it more of a struggle. Not simply because it's further to walk to the Job Centre, but simply because they tend to look at people as a big corporate identity rather than an individual. So yes, I think perhaps that if they're going to make cuts, they need to look at where those cuts are going to be made rather than just cutting right across the board to the local ones. It's more important to keep the actual local ones who know the people and, if you like, know exactly in some respects what they're capable of, what they're actually looking for. You only get this by talking to them and making regular contact with them. If you only go in once every fortnight to sign on, then you're not actually making what I don't believe is proper contact.
And the other one is, you mentioned earlier that you've come along to Evolution, but you've not only had support around the job that you're looking for or your CV, but things like bills or issues around other information on signposting. You found that useful?
Yes, basically I have basically, if you like, one or two areas whereby I needed help with some forms to fill in, just to check over to see if they were actually correct. Because we was actually local, I was actually able to bring them up, and time was able to spend on them to check that they were actually filled in correctly. Which can actually save time all round, because if I fill it in incorrect, it goes there, they send it back and so forth. By getting someone who's perhaps, if you like, outside the looking in, they can turn and say, well, that's relevant, that's not, you perhaps don't need to send that. So yes, I found that, because they're local, because they were near, the help was more geared to what that individual person needed rather than just an overall help.
Do you currently, because you're very positive about Evolution, slightly negative on Job Centre Plus, which I think most people are anyhow. Job Centre Plus are only advertising about 15% of jobs anyhow, so this is obviously...
It's not necessarily the fault of the people in Job Centre Plus, and it really isn't, because they're seeing so many people. That's why it's important to keep Evolution, if you like, local.
That's great.
Well, thanks very much, Mark, for all your time today.